And welcome back to America Can We Talk. This is Debbie Georgatos. So that mean guy over in the booth cut me off. No, seriously, we have very firm segments, and I was very wound up. I still very am wound up about the idea that anyone who actually loves this country has to be trying to work towards solutions in this profound racial tension we have in America. And it is fed often by deception and dishonesty, and we have to be honest about all the facts facing us and move forward to find solutions that honor each other's feelings but are based on facts and not just the hype and the frankly spin of a lot of people involved. Okay, so we're changing the subject now. We have a great guest in studio, and I just really, it's kind of an honor it is an honor to have her here. We have Dr. Barbara Kolm here, and she is a European resident. She's the director of the Austrian Economic Center and president of the Hayek Institute in Austria. And she's here today to talk about, we're going to hear a little bit about her world tour going on. And then Carrie Kellerman, my leading lady, is joining me in this hour to talk with Dr. Kolm about a lot of things going on in Europe. So welcome to the show, Dr. Kolm.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do with the European Free Market Roadshow. We just finished a tour of 40 countries with 45 cities. We're discussing freedom and individual liberty and, of course, all the problems that we face in Europe. And given the terrorist attacks that we have just seen, we were talking about the possibility of Brexit, which nobody in Brussels would have thought possible. I mean, again, the arrogance of the political class in Brussels, who has completely been detached from their voters. And we were also talking about the sharing economy there. And after this tour of within 10 weeks, we are now in the United States, and we are looking forward to having the event tomorrow in Dallas at SMU. And at 3:30 in the afternoon, actually at 3 o'clock at 3:30, we'll start with our panels and have exciting speakers there. And this is what brings me here.
And I'll jump in and say the 2016 Free Market Roadshow in Dallas, as Dr. Kolm just mentioned, is at SMU from 3 till 5 tomorrow. And if you're interested in going, you still can go. Go to freemarketroadshow.us/registration. I'll say that again at the end. And you could go to this tomorrow. It is just a world of knowledge you'll gain in a mere 2 hours. So we have so many things we could be talking with Dr. Kolm about, so we had to narrow down our list, and Carrie's going to start with what she wanted to ask about.
Hi, Barbara. It's so great to have you here. Austria has had something very unusual happen in the last few months. I understand there was an election for between two gentlemen on May 22nd. And on July 1st, I believe, the results of that election were nullified, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we had a woman here last week, and she talks a lot about election fraud, and she said where most of it happens is the mail-in ballots. And I understand this was a problem also in Austria, that there was a problem with the postal ballots. There was a problem with kids under age 16, which is your voting age, voting. There was
Correct.
A problem with foreigners voting, to the extent that they said there's enough here to say, let's do it again, and that date is...
The date will be October 2nd or 3rd.
Okay, October 2nd or 3rd. And the two gentlemen that are running for office, what office are they running for?
They are running for president's
For
office.
president of Austria, we've got Alexander van der Bellen.
Exactly, yes.
And we have Norbert Hofer.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, and I understand that Alexander van der Bellen, just to give our listeners an idea of where he stands, kind of on the whole Brexit issue, kind of the European Union, he dreams of a borderless United States of Europe.
Exactly. Well, it's a very, in my words, I would say it's a very naive way of thinking of Europe. I mean, you have to know Alexander van der Bellen has been the number one of the Green Party, and there are a lot of kind of well-meaning people there who believe that redistribution is something that they are entitled to, and that the achievement principle is something that we completely need to annul and forget about it. And so this is, I think, a very difficult position if you want to run a country. However, he has said that he will be neutral, which he has to be as a president. But after the first race, where Undi Hofer and Van der Bellen remained, and he immediately said that, well, he would not be willing to have a lead. If the FPÖ would win the next elections, he would not allow them to form a government. So this is kind of unusual, actually.
Very
But,
unusual. Okay, so something very interesting also happened in Europe in between the first election, which was May 22nd, and the July 1st nullification of the results. We have a vote in the UK called Brexit.
Exactly.
And I think did it catch you off guard?
Actually, no. I was always hoping for that.
Yes,
to be honest.
We were too. Yeah.
We were holding our breath and watching with much anticipation as that vote went down. Of course, in the wee hours of the morning, I finally said, I have to go to sleep.
Finally, yes. We made it.
Finally. So tell me then, how is what the UK has done and voted to do going to affect what you think might happen on October 2nd?
Well, the point is there are many, many fearmongers around.
Okay.
And they all will say, oh, no, now this is the end of the world. I mean, we know Brexit is not the end of the world. The sun still rises in the east and it sets in the west. People still go to work in Great Britain. They work in the continent. I mean, nothing has literally changed. Of course, they will have a new government, or rather, they have a new prime minister, and certain people had to step down, which
Right.
was probably a consequence of what has happened, but there's nothing good, nothing negative about it.
Right.
So change is about. And we thought, and we really do hope, that this will be a trigger for the rest of Europe, that it will be a trigger for reform. But so far, the first results that we have seen from Juncker and from Schulz, they are really very, very modest. They don't think that they should reform the country, and they sit there and rather wait and ponder what can be done instead of taking action. But this is typical for Brussels, and this is why, of course, many people are unhappy with this current European Union and why Brexit also has happened.
Right. Okay.
We're
So
speaking. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second. We're speaking to, if you just tuned in, with Dr. Barbara Kolm. She's the director of the Austrian Economic Center and president of the Hayek Institute. So I love having firsthand a European person who's here in America, because we read about the impact of the refugees spreading throughout Western Europe, including Germany and Austria. So you're kind of firsthand. What's the feel about it in Austria, and what do you is there an impact in Austrian culture and society?
Well, definitely. There has been a huge change in the perception of the refugee crisis, especially after the attacks on females at New Year's Eve in Cologne and in Salzburg, and a lot of rapings that had happened. So all of a sudden, people stopped put this welcoming policy that Mrs. Merkel had announced last summer into question. And they started realizing, hey, there is a problem if we bring in millions of people who are not of our culture, who do not want to understand our culture, and who do not want to integrate at all. And this is the point, who just come in to seek welfare and live a nice life on the costs of the rest of the Europeans who work without integration. And this is not the asylum seekers, the people who suffer from the war, because these people, it's only 18% from Syria coming to Europe. The rest is Maghreb zone and Black Africa.
Right. It's like North Africa, isn't that?
Yeah.
Well, I read a stat today that 1 million refugees have entered Germany in 2015, and of those million, only 54 have been hired.
Yeah,
and 50 from the same company. That they're just not employable.
Well, the point is, most of them cannot read or write. And when Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, closed the borders at first last summer, this was a huge scandal among the conservatives and prime ministers in Europe. And he was kind of the bad guy. But now it turns out that he was the first one with the foresight to put this to an end and save at least part of Europe. I mean, we will still have millions of people coming in.
Right.
Yeah, we're coming up on a break here, but I just have a fabulous guest in the studio tonight, and I'm so glad she's here. It's Dr. Barbara Kolm. She's the director, again, of the Austrian Economic Center, president of Hayek Institute. We're talking about what it feels like to be in Europe right now with the refugee crisis. And you said in an email to me, and I want to come back to this after the break, Dr. Kolm, but Western Europe has kind of this similar American Judeo-Christian value base, and it shapes culture as it has in America. And so we look at what's happening in Europe with the influx of many refugees who are supporters of Islam or followers of Islam. They're in some degree, Muslim, whether they are fundamentalists or just kind of historically Muslim, and the impact it's had on your culture. So I want to turn to that when we come back after the break. Don't go away. We have a great guest with us. And welcome back to America Can We Talk. This is Debbie Georgatos. I have my second hour leading lady who's joined me this hour, which is great, Carrie Kellerman. And we have a guest in the studio tonight, Dr. Barbara Kolm. And she is an Austrian citizen. She is traveling the world doing as part of the 2016 Free Market Roadshow. And there is actually a roadshow event tomorrow in Dallas if you're interested. It's a very cool thing at SMU among the world's top economists talking about really relevant, hot topic issues right here in Texas tomorrow at SMU. So if you're interested, you can go to freemarketroadshow.us/registration to find out about the 2016 Free Market Roadshow at SMU from 3 till 5 tomorrow. So we're back with Dr. Kolm. There's so much to talk about and so little time. So Carrie Kellerman's going to roll here.
Right. We were talking about the elections in Austria and how they're going to be reheld on October 2nd because of a razor-thin victory and then some irregularities enough to put those results into question. Meanwhile, we've had the Brexit vote in the UK. Do you think that this next election is going to almost turn into a kind of leave-stay referendum on the EU? And then second part of this question, what do you see in the near future for the European Union?
Well, to answer your first question, of course, the presidential election cannot be a leave-stay question for Austria for the Brexit, but definitely it will be part of the campaign because the issue is whether European Union is able to reform from inside and whether Juncker and Schulz will finally do what they are supposed to do, namely allow the nation states more freedom again, don't plan everything centrally as they have done and take away, just all the decisions and lose the attachment to the people, to the voters.
Right.
Because there is, a huge gap. Everything is being done in Brussels. We don't know what is happening there.
Right.
And the people feel lost.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead, please, Dr. Kolm.
And of course, in the election, and Hofer was very clear about it. He says that he would vote or he would ask for a campaign for a Brexit, for a leave campaign if those changes do not happen. So he thinks he's fair enough to give the opportunity to Brussels to make those changes and to look at what can be done. Because after all, the European Union is now over 50 years old. This thing has evolved from a peacekeeping process or idea that it originally was to now 29 nations, because one will begin soon, conglomerate, and the European Union is not like Europe. That's a difference. We have to keep that in mind.
So interesting within the EU, which I was just about to ask you when it was founded, but you say over 50 years ago. It just seems like, I know in America, we feel like we have a unique American identity, or we did before the last 7 years, but we have a unique American identity. But in Europe, I do think so many countries, I love visiting Europe, and they do have unique identity. And I thought that felt like part of it with Britain saying, we're not surrendering all of that. So you described a bit about how the EU regulates, but how do they get in the middle of your life in Austria or the middle of your life in Germany? What kinds of things are making it hard to function as a member of EU?
Well, just first thing, want to clarify. The Coal and Steel Union was founded right after World War II, and then out of that emerged the European Union in a later stage, where we had 6 founding members. But to your question, it's as easy as that. They control how tractor seats, for land machines are need to be sized, and what kind of fruits are being sold, and how they are being registered. And it really comes to your personal life at every single day, and this is being coordinated out of Brussels. And come on. we know that our individual freedom is so important. I mean, all this smoking and campaigns or no smoking campaigns and regulations, the plain packaging campaign, everything is coming out of Brussels, and this is no good.
Right. Yeah. We mentioned at the start of the show, and I want to be sure and touch on it. We, of course, had a very tragic incident just 2 nights ago in Nice, France, and that was committed by a young man who had emigrated to France from Tunisia, and he was a Muslim. And I know there's always sorts of I guess they're still investigating, trying to figure out why he did it. But I want to get at the terror attacks that have occurred in France and around Belgium, just around Europe in the last several years. I think that, I mean, don't they put a strain on each country? And is EU involved at all in trying to direct immigration policy and who you let in and who you don't let in? And is that part of the problem too?
Well, actually, Angela Merkel, who is the secret leader of the EU, with her welcoming policy, made things very difficult last year for everybody. And then she started imposing quotas on how many refugees each nation has to take. And there were countries that say, hey, come on, we are not interested in that. We don't do that. We don't welcome that sort of migration. We have our rules, and we want to stick to those, and we don't welcome that. And so this was a big issue. And
yeah, I read somewhere that one of the reasons the UK left is because they were unable to deport people who had already committed crimes in the UK. Refugees and migrants, because the EU wouldn't let them.
Yeah, this is one reason. Another reason was, of course, which was also a fear-mongering thing, but there are some true roots in this issue, is that, there will be people coming to get welfare and to live on the money that Brits have paid in taxes, and who actually they think don't deserve it.
Wow.
So that's a redistribution issue and a question of how we can deal. And given our economies not growing in a way that they should, there are only 2 European economies growing more than 3% this year, which is Ireland and Poland. And all the others are way below.
I didn't know that.
So
yeah. We were talking in the break, I think it was in the break or on the other segment too, about how many European countries do not have a huge army. They don't necessarily have the ability to protect their borders as well as we might in America. Not that we do a good job in America, but we could. So is that part of the problem, is you just don't have the ability to protect your borders as you need to? Is that right?
Well, I think this is also one problem that the European Union these days has. We cannot protect our outer borders. We have the Schengen Agreement in between, and this is now put into question because of the migration crisis. But the military expenditures in Europe is very low in contrast to many other countries. So the only country that is kind of holding up with a good army, or the 2 only, are Germany and Great Britain. And this doesn't help defend the rest. And we don't have a common defense agreement. We don't have a common European security and army system. So this is a big issue.
Yeah. I'm sorry, something quick.
So what do you see short term for the EU? Who do you think other countries will start to pull out and have referendums of their own, like England did?
Well, there is, again, if Juncker and Schulz don't act fast and don't show the willingness of reform and step back a little bit and look what the citizens, what the people really want, and not the arrogance of the, no, we know everything, we decide for you, then there will be the Netherlands, the Dutch, who will definitely step out. If Marine Le Pen wins the next presidential elections in France next year, it would be an option, because, I mean, what is happening in France right now is actually very interesting. Hollande has a problem with his economic minister, Macron, and those two he's obviously not supporting him anymore. On the other hand, the prime minister, Manuel Valls, is also opposing. So if those 3 quarrel, then probably Marine Le Pen will be the laughing third or fourth and coming in.
Wow. So, I hope so.
Well, let's see, yeah.
Yeah, tell our listeners a little bit about her.
Well, Marine Le Pen is the lady from the Front National. She's the head there. She was very successful in the last elections. She is, on the one hand, a very nationalist, as the name says. So she wants France first. She has a clear state on, we want to keep the foreigners and the Islamists out. And she wants France for the French and also the welfare for the French and not foreigners. And she has her economic policies are not as libertarian as I wished they were, to be honest. But what is in France? France is a lost case. It's a lost case. If you have 2/3 of the population working directly or indirectly for government, you have to fix this.
Wait. 2/3 of the population working for the government?
Directly or indirectly, because
gracious.
You have bureaucrats, you have teachers, you have companies that are owned by the state, et cetera, et cetera. So this is
what could go wrong?
And a bad labor law in addition to that.
Yeah. We only have like a minute and a half left in this segment. We're speaking with Dr. Barbara Kolm. And again, I just urge you to, in fact, do you have a website people can go to and read about your organizations?
Oh, yeah, we have www.austriancenter.com. And we have another one, which is, of course, www.hayek-institute.at. And the third one, which is the roadshow, and I argue to take the U.S. roadshow, it's freemarketroadshow.us.
Okay. And, we talk in the show a lot about how it's great to have address and talk about the issues facing our country and have solutions and pass new laws. But think tanks are people who actually think through what is the policy that's going to get us to the result we need. These are invaluable. And it's why we in the show advertise. Heritage Foundation advertises on this show, and Texas Public Policy Foundation, and the Institute for Policy Innovation, and the National Center for Policy Analysis. We love think tanks because they help us with good ideas. And so I urge you to go to those and actually understand people are trying to find solutions that just work. Okay, I hear this guy playing the music. Okay, fine. I think we're near the end. I want to thank Dr. Barbara Kolm. Do you have one more quick thing to say? You look like you do. No?
Well, we're think tankers. We're just also do tankers because we really put this into action and reality.
I like that. Do tankers. Okay. This is Debbie Georgatos in America Can We Talk? We thank our guest, Dr. Barbara Kolm, for being here. Glad Carrie joined me this hour. And at this next hour, we are going to talk about what Newt Gingrich had to say about what to do about the Islamic problem in America.